the questions that you might want to ask today, and we'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first live chat of 2015. We're so glad that you could join us. We have muted all of your lines, so feel free to multitask while you listen to this live chat. We know you're all really busy. And if you have questions, please enter them in this section of your screen. You'll see a little question section. You can also email your questions to livechat@homeinstead.com, and we'll do our best to get to those as well. We are recording this live chat, and once the event is over, we'll email you a link to the recording as well as links to the resources that we mentioned throughout. Okay, so let's talk about who you're going to hear from today. I'm Kat Kaler, and I'll be your moderator for today's chat. I'm the social media advocate here at Home Instead Senior Care. Home Instead Senior Care is a network of locally owned franchises dedicated to help you keep your aging loved ones in their homes as they grow older. We've developed the highest quality dementia caregiver training program available, and every day our caregivers help change the way that families live with dementia. And I'm really excited to welcome our guest expert today. Karen Garner is an expert by experience. She's the caregiver for her husband, Jim, who is diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's. Jim and Karen also have two children, Francis, who's 14, and Bradley, who's 10. You may know Karen from following along her blog, missingjim.com. If you don't follow her blog, I urge you to go check it out. And it's not unusual to find Karen advocating for research and awareness and support for families just like yours up in Washington, D.C. And most recently, Karen founded the Garner Foundation to help caregivers get the financial and service support that they need. And in case all of that isn't enough, she's also volunteering at Francis and Bradley's schools and is their bigger cheerleader in the many sports that they plan. And in fact, I think Karen might be coaching a basketball game this evening when we're done. So, Karen, yes, welcome to our live chat.
Hi, thank you so much, Kat. It's my pleasure to be here, and I am very excited about being able to talk to so many other caregivers from around the country so that we can all help each other.
Awesome. You know what? I'm going to ask everybody who's online to start submitting their questions. And Karen, let's get right into a question that came into our email box. And this one is from Pam. Pam's question is, how do you know when it's time for your loved one with frontal temporal dementia to have someone come in from a place like Home Instead to care for them? The loved one has talked about needing companionship, but really doesn't want anyone coming into the home to help. Any tips for Pam?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one, and that's something that we hear quite frequently. Many times with all the different forms of dementia, they really are wary of having somebody come into their home, and a lot of times it's hard to get them to leave the home as well. So I think each case you have to take individually, and if they are open to the idea, which it sounded like at the beginning of her question that she was, I would speak to the local homestead office and possibly have them come into the home, possibly as you know, a volunteer or somebody cleaning the home. And what it tends to happen is the person gets so used to having them there, they become a friend, they become part of the family, and eventually they get agitated when that person doesn't come. So then you have a whole opposite problem. But I think that that it can definitely be done. You have to use your communication with the local homestead office and work together.
That's great. Yeah, I think slowly introducing a caregiver, but consistently, right? That consistency is key.
Yes, definitely. So, I know just with Jim, we have found that he actually is happier when he gets to go to his respite care because he is surrounded by people that understand him, people who are willing to have patience with him and do some activities with him, and it ends up he looks forward to that. So I believe that in the long run it is a great thing. Sometimes there's growing pains getting there, but I think it will be so wonderful for the caregiver as well to get some help.
Karen, were there any growing pains for you as that family caregiver of you know, kind of getting that outside help?
Definitely. You know, there's a lot of things going on. It's not just financial. I mean, that obviously comes into play, but you also have somebody coming into your home that you don't know, and I don't want to say it is a complete invasion of privacy, but it is. It's having this person that you don't know come into your home on a daily or weekly basis, and seeing your private life and you know, for me it would be seeing my dirty laundry and my messy kitchen and desk and everything else. So, you know, so sometimes you have to be able to get past that initial hurdle, and
Right.
Once you do, it's well worth it. But sometimes you're just going to have to push yourself over that hump.
Great. That's awesome. And hey, I want to let everybody know who's listening and online, if you have any tips to share with caregivers who are asking questions, go ahead and put them in to the question function, and we'll try and share some of your tips as well. One of the reasons I'm so excited to welcome Karen to our online chats is, you know, this is her life. She's just like all of you. She is that family caregiver. So she's giving her tips based on her experience. So we want to hear about your experience as well. Karen, we have a question here from Edith. She emailed us at livechat@homeinstead.com, and it looks like they're looking to maybe add a pet to their family. Edith wants to know what kind of dog might be a good dog for her husband who is diagnosed with vascular dementia. Are there any criteria that she should pick a dog from, or do you have any experience with that or any advice?
Well, thank you, Edith, for such a great question. We actually did get a dog a little over a year ago. We got a border collie, and border collies are easily trained. They're very smart dogs. I believe that it would really depend on where you live, because what you need to do is find a dog that has been service trained, especially if your loved one has been further along in the disease. So without knowing exactly how far along Eva's husband is, I wouldn't be able to really say, but I can tell you that there are organizations out there all across the country who train dogs specifically for dementia patients, as opposed to dogs that are trained for, you know, seeing for someone or helping someone with diabetes. They're specifically trained. I believe Edith was wanting a dog from the SPCA, which will be a little bit harder simply because the dog would have to go through some very specific training. And there are some options out there. If the person is familiar with dogs and is able to train them, then I think that would be then that would give them the option of going to their local SPCA, but you would definitely need to get a dog that would be easily trained.
What type of, that's great information. We see so many people with service dogs. What are some of the functions that, maybe a service dog for a person with dementia might be able to perform?
Well, one of the main ones that they can perform is just helping that person not get lost if they want to walk around the block, if they want to visit a friend that maybe lives close by, that kind of thing. That's part of what they're trained for. And also, if they become agitated, as many of you are aware, that people with dementia tend to get agitated, especially in the early evening. And a lot of times these service dogs, specifically for dementia, are trained to calm the person and to sort of sense when they are feeling that way and to help make them a little bit more comfortable so that they don't have the same irritation that they normally would.
That's awesome. What a great service for a family.
Thank you. And on top of that, I know just with my husband, it's great companionship. Sometimes he pays more attention to the dog than he does to the kids. Speaking of which, right on cue, I couldn't have even timed that one perfectly myself. But it's just great for him because when he can't figure out what else to do, which seems to become more and more common these days, he just hangs with the dog and sits and pets the dog or talks to the dog, and it gives him that connection and that bond that makes him very happy. And I can see a huge change in him since we got the dog.
That's awesome. Karen, our next question was sent to us, and it's from Elizabeth. And with your experience with younger onset Alzheimer's, I think this might be a question that you can be able to relate to and maybe give some tips. Her question is, what do we do if we believe a supervisor may have a form of dementia?
That's a really tough one. And without knowing specifically what kind of field they're in, obviously, if you're in a field such as a police officer or somebody that drives a lot, somebody that has to make quick decisions that could potentially be life-threatening, that's going to have a different answer than, say, somebody who's sitting in a cubicle all day, typing up papers. There's obviously some urgency with one over the other, and a lot of times people know that something is wrong with them, but they don't quite know what it is. I know with Jim, we started figuring out what was wrong with him. Nobody from his work ever called me to say, hey, have you noticed anything different with Jim? And I kept trying to figure out, do people at work see the same things I'm seeing at home? Why hasn't anybody called? And Jim had top security clearance. He was a government contractor. So we had to be very, very careful with what we told people, because once it came out that he had dementia, he would lose that top security clearance and ultimately lose his job, which of course he did. Right. And so that's something to be very careful about. And of course, it depends on the personality. Is this person if it's their supervisor, are they somebody that would be willing to have you come and talk to them? Some people don't want to hear that. If I would suggest, if possible, if they have a spouse or a close friend that these coworkers know, are comfortable talking to, I would consult with them first. I would also contact your local Alzheimer's Association. They have a lot of really good written information that you can read and go over, and each location around the country has specific handouts for your local area as far as support groups and neurologists and different attorneys, elder care attorneys to consult with, because there's a lot that goes into getting everything situated when that diagnosis or even before the diagnosis takes place. But basically, I would try to discuss it first with a spouse or a close friend and see if they have noticed anything. This has come up before. I know I've had people tell me that they didn't know something was wrong with their mom or dad until somebody from the bank called or somebody from the pharmacy called. There's been a lot of different examples of that, and it makes a huge difference. So I think you can't sit idly by, but you have to be very careful with how you handle it.
Great advice. Thank you. Okay, we have a question that was sent in to us, and it looks like this is from Lisa. Lisa is in Overland Park, Kansas. Her dad is in a memory care unit in Iowa. He's in the middle to late stages of Alzheimer's. Her question is about her mom. Mom lives in her own home, but rarely visits Dad. When she does visit, it's about an hour, and she can't wait to get out of there. Lisa and her sisters find it appalling, and Mom tells them that he's just too messy when he eats, and she needs to get out of there. So Mom is also calling Lisa and her siblings several times a day, and now has every ailment in the book. Mom visits the doctor frequently and also the ER. The doctors never find anything wrong. And Lisa's saying she understands that Mom is lonely, but she's not leaving her house. Any suggestions?
Boy, that's a tough one, and that is there's a lot going on here. So let's break this particular question down. The first part, let's talk about with the mom not wanting to visit the dad. You know, this is actually something that's pretty common, and I think, you know, it sounds like they've probably been married for quite a long time if they have kids old enough to live in a whole nother city and state. So they've been together. This is very hard on the mom. It's very difficult, I'm sure, for all of her dreams to be slipping away from her. For her to see this man that she was in love with for so long and had children with and raised them with and had a future planned with, to see him in this memory care unit is probably just very, very difficult. It's as many people find out, it's hard to, you know, get up and get excited about going to see somebody that you planned on growing old with and spending your life with in a facility where maybe they can't feed themselves or get themselves dressed or you know, help take care of themselves. And sometimes people just can't handle that. It's, you know, just like when somebody gets sick with the flu, some people handle it very stoically and some people, you know, turn into babies themselves. So, you know, everybody has to be able to handle this themselves. And the last thing this mom needs is her children not supporting her in her decision to not visit more often, because the one thing I have learned going through this is you can't always judge somebody else, because you just don't know what they're going through themselves, even if you think they are. And I know that might not be what Lisa wants to hear. You know, I know she's looking for an answer to get her mom to want to see the dad, but it's not about getting the mom to want to do something. It's about supporting the mom as she loses the man that she loves.
Very true. And, you know, I think it's very easy to get on that slippery slope of, gosh, I feel terrible every time I'm there. And, okay, well, you know what, normally I go on this day, but I've got something else, so I'm going to skip. Then you start feeling guilty. But you keep putting it off because you don't want to go and feel guilty and have to explain why you haven't been there, even though you know they may not remember. It really is a vicious circle. And so I think great advice, you know, for the kids to, you know, support mom and understand that, you know, while dad is in the middle of this this terrible illness, mom really is suffering too.
Correct. Now, that's not to say that they can't, still encourage her to go visit him, and maybe go with her when they're in town to visit him. Now, as far as her calling the kids and then visiting the doctor herself, the hospital, and then not finding anything wrong, that's a little bit out of my scope. I feel like that falls in the realm of possibly needing to talk to a counselor. Maybe she is looking for attention. Maybe she is feeling like something is wrong with her because she sees so much, what's the word I'm looking for? She sees so much sickness in her husband, and she is constantly seeing those same symptoms in herself. And I think that happens sometimes with caregivers of all diseases. You see this symptom, and then all of a sudden you start feeling that. I think that's very common. Again, I think this also still goes back to her not wanting to really spend a lot of time with him, and complaining that he's too messy when he eats, and waiting to get out of there. This woman is needing help. She doesn't need judgment. She needs some help because she is having a really hard time. And once he is finally gone, I think she is probably going to have some regrets. And it sounds like she's hurting very badly, and is obviously very lonely because she's calling her kids a lot and going to the doctor. Maybe if there's a support group that her kids can find for her. Overland Park is right outside of Kansas City. Actually, I think the mom was in Des Moines. Des Moines is also a very large city. The local Alzheimer's Association chapter probably has some support groups there that she can start going to, or even the kids where they live can go to and get some tips from other people. So there's a lot of opportunity out there through their local Alzheimer's Association, and I would totally encourage them to take advantage of those programs.
That's awesome. Hey, Karen, we had a comment come in. It sounds like one of our participants can relate to this. Let's see. It says, I have a very difficult time bringing my mother to my home every third weekend to care for her, as my sisters do on their weekends. He said, I have a harder time dealing with her and her condition than my sisters do, mainly because my mother is at a stage where she is not nice at all. My sisters are able to ignore, look past that with her disease, but I, on the other hand, cannot. I take her ugly remarks and hitting, etc., personally, where they do not. So absolutely, Chris, thank you for the comment. We all go through this journey in our relationship with our loved one in a different way, and we really, everybody just needs the support of the family to be able to go through it as best as they can.
Yes, I agree 100%. Everybody handles it differently. I have a friend here who she was actually living with her mom and taking care of her mom and doing almost all of it, and her siblings were constantly judging her, telling her what she was doing wrong, and she came very close to having a nervous breakdown because she was working full time and trying to take care of her mom, and then getting judged by her siblings. To the point where she just couldn't do anything right. And finally she said, you guys come take care of her and see how it is for you. That I think that changed the tune a little bit. But, everybody has to take a step back and try to know that everybody in the situation is doing the best that they can. It may not be the same thing that they would be doing themselves, but the other person's doing the best that they can.
Yep. Real quick before we kind of hit halftime, we have a question that has come in about the financial challenges, especially as it relates to the younger onset Alzheimer's. And the person asking, Connie is asking particularly for the men who are afflicted with the Alzheimer's, who had successful careers and maybe don't qualify for government help. It seems like she's not able to get any good advice other than to declare bankruptcy or to clear out debt from the loss of income. Can you talk? I know the Garner Foundation, one of its goals is to you know, help with this financial need that families go through when they get a diagnosis. Can you maybe give some tips to our listeners or give some information?
Boy, I totally feel this one 100%. And I'm glad that somebody's talking about it because this is a huge issue, especially for younger onset, but even for people that are a little bit older. The cost of caring for someone with Alzheimer's or some form of dementia is just so high. And unless that person does not have a family that also needs some income, for example, say they are retired and one of them goes in the home, but the other person, the other spouse, still needs to stay in the home and have a car and have those separate utilities, it's very hard to come up with that duplicate income to also pay for skilled care. Now, when you throw younger onset into the mix, this person typically used to work, probably like my husband, supported the family. They still had many years left in them before they would get to the retirement age to have a good retirement income coming in. So that throws a whole nother scenario on top of it. And for our family in particular, we have young kids at home. Even some other younger onset people that I've met, their kids are typically just out of the house in college or beyond. There are a few that I've met who have kids in high school. So not only do you have to come up with the care to take care of your loved one, but you have to continue to raise children and pay for all of their activities and, of course, their food. They're growing kids. They eat a lot, and they outgrow their clothes. And, you know, they want to go to the movies with their friends and everything else. In the meantime, you're trying to figure out how to come up with $5,000 or $6,000 a month to pay for a nursing home. So I have not figured this out myself. I have met with elder care attorneys, and I have not been told the same as Connie about having to file bankruptcy. It has been mentioned about possibly divorcing Jim so that he wouldn't qualify on his own. So that he would qualify on his own without my income to get some government assistance. I'm not real crazy about that idea. I haven't really even explored it. Like I said, it was mentioned. There is a lack of understanding in society and our government's part about how difficult this is financially, especially for the younger onset, and that's one of the things I deal with when I go to DC and fight for help for these families. With the Garner Foundation, what we're actually trying to do is help with that elder care attorney assistance to get their finances in order so that hopefully they will be able to qualify for Medicaid and Medicare later on down the road, and that they can get their disability paperwork done quickly. Because a lot of times people are held up getting the disability because that paperwork is just so cumbersome. So with the Garner Foundation, that's what our goal is. And the reason that we came up with that was because we've lived it. We've seen what's needed. We've seen how desperate people can become, myself included, when, you know, every door you try to open, you open it and there's a brick wall right behind it and there is no answer, and you can just see your family's income and your savings dwindling away, and there's no way to stop it. So, so unfortunately, Connie, I don't have a great answer for you. I wish I had a magic answer. I would make sure your story's known. I would contact your representatives at the state level and at the national level, because when it's one or two people letting them know, they don't really take as much notice. But when we are strong together, then they will start taking notice and they will start seeing what a problem this is.
Absolutely. Great, great tips, Karen. Thank you. And, you know, I think anybody who's in this situation, you know, can tell their friends and, you know, probably strangers on the street even at this point, you know, this is something that you have to prepare for. and preparing for an illness or something, it may not be when you're 80 years old. So it's something that, we need to think about and plan for and have those talks with our spouses and with our parents and with our family really much earlier than we think we do.
Yes, and I also encourage her to contact local churches. A lot of times they will have groups that offer respite care, and they have groups that offer food assistance. You don't always have to qualify financially. That's part of my problem is if I get so low at income that I qualify for any of the programs, I'm not going to be able to keep my house and feed my kids.
Right.
If I keep our life where it is right now, we're just middle income, average American family, and we don't qualify for anything yet. I still don't have the money to take care of my spouse. So there's this huge catch-22 there that I think many people fall into. And a lot of times there's local organizations that can help out a little bit. They're not going to be able to help out with, say, your $6,000 a month nursing home bill, but they are going to be able to help you put food on the table or possibly get some respite care or even come to your house and help, fix some little things around the house or do some yard work for you. There are groups out there, especially if you live close to a college. Students are always looking to get some community service. I would definitely contact as many of those organizations as you can and get the word out there. And as you start advocating and meeting more people, people come out of the woodwork to help you once they know your story.
Absolutely. And I would encourage anybody who's listening to check out helpforalzheimersfamilies.com. Home Instead Senior Care has teamed up with Hilarity for Charity to offer some relief care grants. So you can apply for those grants right there on the website, and that's helpforalzheimersfamilies.com. And we'll send you an email with links for these resources when the event is over. So yeah, good luck. It's that's a tough situation that I think so many families are really struggling with. Hey guys, we are going to take just a couple of minutes to do a little poll. We like to get people's, our participants' feedback. We want to know who we're talking to, and so that we can develop the resources to help you best. So the poll's going, if you're online, it's going to show up on your computer screen. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to answer that there in your little box there, the poll box. And don't forget to go ahead and enter, if you have a question for Karen, go ahead and enter it into the question section of your screen. Or if you're listening on the phone and you're not joining us online, but you have access to email, you can also email your question to us at livechat@homeinstead.com, and we'll try and get to your question there as well. Okay. Thank you all for taking time to answer our poll question. We are going to kick off the second half of our chat here with a question that came in via email. Karen, this question is from Marcella, and it's, my husband's sexual desire for me has increased. He's almost 80. And he's been diagnosed with dementia. It's causing a problem for me, and he does not remember when I talked to him about it. Is there something I can do to help with this?
I love this question. I'm going to tell you why, because I feel like I read and talk to so many people about dementias all the time. I'm immersed in it. And So I never hear anybody talk about the sex side of it, whether they're not getting it or they are getting it or whatever. And I love the fact that this person, Marcella, just put it out there. I think that that it needs to be discussed more because it is a huge part of a relationship. And I actually have just the opposite problem, and I have held back from writing about it. So I think that it is quite normal. I remember when I was in college, I took a class, and one of the statistics was that there was more sex going on in nursing homes than there was on college campuses.
Right.
And that was quite a few years ago, and I just remember being so shocked thinking about like my grandma, my granddad. But I think that is something that needs to be discussed with the neurologist or your husband's doctor. And unfortunately, it happens a lot where when they're in a nursing home, they meet somebody else there because they're with them all day, and they forget that it's not their wife or their husband. And there's a lot of complications in the sexual field that happen with this disease, and I feel like it needs to be discussed more. It needs to be out in the open more.
Yeah, it's, Connie had commented that her daughter thought that perhaps she didn't love her husband anymore because they were no longer as affectionate or intimate as they used to be. So you're right, there is the whole spectrum. If you have one problem, chances are somebody has the opposite problem.
Exactly. And
but,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I always encourage people, if there's a change, a sudden change or a dramatic change, that's always a great time to pick up the phone and call the doctor.
Yes.
Make sure that there's no underlying issue that's causing that.
Yes, I agree 100%. And besides, it's a good way to track the progression of the disease. When certain things do change like that, it's good to have it in their medical record, because sometimes the doctor needs to be able to look back over time and see what changes have taken place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had, Tom had asked a question saying that his wife forgot how about 4 to 5 years after diagnosis, and he's wondering if that's normal.
I think it is. Like I said, I don't hear a lot of talk about this, but for me personally, it is. And I do know that one time I had a discussion with another caregiver, and she was just a couple of years older than me, and her husband was a couple of years further along than Jim was. And I remember her telling me that she knew that it was time to stop having sex with her husband when he didn't know what to do anymore, and she felt like she was raping him. And I thought, wow, that's pretty profound. And I think that happens. I think they either go one way where they just can't get enough, and that filter in their brain of having them stop with any kind of irregular behavior or inappropriate behavior is gone, or it just seems to leave them altogether. I think you sort of go one way or the other. And I'm sorry, Tom, I know how you feel, and for me being a middle-aged woman, it's not fun. So, but like I said, I think there needs to be more discussion. I think this is a topic for a book or something.
Right.
Where's Molly Carpenter when you need her?
Right, I know. She's going to be upset she missed out on all the sex talk. But
yeah.
Let's get to another question here, and this one is from Cindy, and Cindy emailed us. Cindy says, my sisters and I are unsure how to deal with my mother's combativeness when caring for her. She will throw things at us, and sometimes when she does not even appear to be agitated or upset. Do you have any tips on the best way to handle this?
Whew. Well, again, hopefully they have spoken to the doctor. A lot of times when Alzheimer's and dementia patients get agitated and irritated like this, they do have some medication to put them on. I do caution on that though, because there has been some instances where people have been over-medicated,
Right.
and you have to be very, very careful with that. So I definitely encourage, because anytime somebody's going to get physical, you have to worry about, obviously, them hurting themselves, but hurting somebody else.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's drawing the line, because they can't help it. Obviously they have a disease that affects their ability to decide if what they're doing is right or wrong. And sometimes they just go with impulses that their body takes over, their natural instinct takes over. So I definitely encourage. This is definitely one that I believe the physician, their doctor, needs to be part of that discussion.
Absolutely, and great tips. And Karen, you mentioned Molly Carpenter earlier, and for those of you who aren't familiar, Molly Carpenter is the author of the book Confidence to Care, a resource for family caregivers providing Alzheimer's disease or other dementias care at home. And I just, grabbed her book off of my bookshelf here, because it's the way that she wrote it. It's really kind of by symptom, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things that I love that she always encourages caregivers to look at is, before deciding, like, what is the problem here, ask yourself if the person has a need that is not being met. Is there an emotional, a social, a physical, environmental? Is the room too warm? Are they hungry? Is there something that's, that's causing this, that's a need that's not being met? So always, look for something that may have changed in their environment. That's always, one of the first things that we see to set somebody off is, I remember when I put my grandma's blanket on her sofa instead of her chair, and that ended up being a 2-hour combat over the placement of a blanket. So sometimes it's little things, but like you said, Karen, always check things out like that with your doctor. And I love what you said earlier about that's one way to help track the disease, is by, checking those things out with the doctor.
Oh, definitely. And I definitely think that what you said is so important. And it can get frustrating. The thing that caregivers have to remember is it's frustrating to the person that is confused or irritated, because deep down inside they're not sure why they're acting like that either, and they certainly can't tell you. And it's frustrating for you, because you're trying to figure out why this person who would have never killed a fly is now lashing out at you like this, and some demon has taken over and possessed them now. And so it can get really frustrating in the heat of the moment. You can lose your temper, and you can lash out back at them, and that's never a good scenario. So, Kat, you brought up a great point of just trying to take a step back and trying to figure out what crazy thing is, setting them off this time. And it's probably going to be something simple. It's just a matter of trying to figure it out.
Yep. We have a question here, and it seems I can almost guarantee we have this question on every chat. So it's something that families really struggle with, and I don't know if you're at this point yet, or if you're not, if maybe we could brainstorm some ideas together. This question came in via email, and it's, how do you get someone with dementia to bathe? My in-laws refuse to take a bath. We've tried bribery, demanding, asking nicely, reminding them, offering to help, but nothing seems to work.
Well, that's another hard one. I think that goes along with the combativeness. I know with Jim, sometimes, I'll say, you haven't got a shower today, and he'll be very insistent that he has. And a lot of times he will just let me say to him, okay, well, you may have gotten one, but I think you still need another one, because, you've got some dirt here, or something like that. So And then I just say, we're getting ready to go to the store, we're getting ready to go to dinner, or, you're going to respite care. You need to make sure you get clean before you go. And a lot of times he will. So, and I don't think that will work with a lot of patients out there. There's a lot of people who really fight this. I hear repeatedly over and over the same problem. And I think, let's face it, back 100 years ago, people did only take showers once a week. We've gotten a little spoiled being able to take them every day, sometimes twice a day. And we're going to have to be happy if we can get them to take one every couple of days. It may not be what we want, it may not be what they used to do, but it may be the best that we can do in that moment. And hopefully you are able to get them in there at least every couple of days.
Absolutely. And you know what, if it's every 2, every 3 days, keep some wet wipes around.
Yes.
And let them freshen up that way. I know we've had, Home Instead has had some clients that, with dementia, that really the caregiver started off just coming just for baths and things like that. And we found a lot of our clients, it was really a modesty thing. Mom didn't want her grown son to bathe her.
Yeah.
And things like that. So, it might help to, maybe see if you can get some help doing that.
Oh, I agree, Kat. Another thing is as you go along and you're in the earlier stages, sometimes you remind them to get the shower, but then when I know for Jim, he takes a very, very quick one. I'm talking 2 to 3 minutes. And I'll be like, I don't think you did everything. And he'll be insistent that he did wash his hair and wash. And so I just sort of have to let that go. But I can tell by his hair that he didn't necessarily wash it. So sometimes in the interim from that point of them really being able to clean themselves to where they aren't able to and you have to help them, there's going to be some showers and bathing times in there where they're not doing the normal job that they would or that you'd like for them to, and you're just going to have to accept it. You're going to have to be okay with the fact they at least got in there and got some water on them and got wet.
Absolutely. And I love this. We have a couple of comments on our bathing discussion. And Connie says, since my husband isn't as active as he used to be, I didn't get upset if he didn't shower and shave every day. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
I think it was a couple of weeks ago, there was a trending article online about how, we probably shower or bathe way more than we actually need to.
Yes.
So, and then let's see. Tom Harris says that he's enjoying the bathing discussion as well. He says we do it every 2 or 3 days unless she has a major bowel movement and her depends. So yeah, it's one of those go with the flow. If it's absolutely necessary, then maybe you want to try some redirection or hey, I left. Like you asked me, I left the towel, that clean towel in the bathroom for you for your bath. So do what you can. Otherwise, it comes down to everything else in life, right? You got to choose your battles.
It is so true, and it's all in expectations. Are you expecting them to be the same person they were before the diagnosis? And I know that it has been a come to Jesus moment for me where I just can't have the same expectations that I had 5 years ago. And like you said, you have to go with the flow and accept what is happening right now.
Before we get to some resources that can help everybody here, I want to. Connie had offered a comment about the question we had earlier about the combativeness, and it really is a great tip. So I wanted to share Connie's tip. She says, stay calm and redirect. Log the behavior to see if there's a pattern. This information will help the doctor. She says she used a notebook to log information in every day. So that is a great tip, Connie.
That is a great tip. Thank you, Connie. Connie is a great reader of Missing Jim, and I get a lot of great emails from her. So thank you, Connie, for that.
Great. Awesome. Hey, before we take another question or two, I want to make sure, I know some folks are maybe short on time, so I want to make sure that we can explain or show you some of the resources that we've talked to. And there's that puppy in the background, Karen.
Yeah.
He wants his 15 minutes of fame.
He does. Jim's over there playing with him.
Oh, good. Okay, so if you're logged onto the computer, you can see the resources that we've discussed here today. Helpforalzheimersfamilies.com is a great website. Everything from online training, support, and resources for family caregivers is there. That's also where you can apply for the Hilarity for Charity Relief Care Grant. ConfidenceToCare.com is where you can find the book written by Molly Carpenter that I mentioned earlier. And then if you haven't already joined us on Facebook, facebook.com/rememberforalzheimers is our community page there. And Karen, we just liked your missingjim.com page here not too long ago. So good stuff over on your page too.
Oh, thank you.
And Karen, I'll let you take these last two bullet points. I'd love for you to explain to our listeners what they can find, talk a little bit about the Garner Foundation and then about your blog, missingjim.com.
All right, thanks, Kat. The Garner Foundation basically started from our own personal experience and from hearing from so many people around the country who were struggling with these same things. There's a lot of action going on as far as advocacy for more research, which is desperately needed, and on the local level for some support groups through the Alzheimer's Association. But as we went through the day in and day out misery of dealing with this disease, there were some specific things that I just couldn't find anywhere, no matter how much I searched online. One was respite care, which I was so glad to see that Home Instead and Hilarity for Charity had teamed up together for some respite care grants. I actually applied for one myself, so I thought, wow, this is exactly what we're trying to do. We're going to try to help with respite care to as many people as we can on a consistent basis, because that's definitely been missing out there. Obviously, we were on the same wavelength. Another one, like I mentioned earlier, is elder care attorney help when somebody is first diagnosed, because it's so important to go ahead and get things in order right away. You can't wait a couple of years, because there is a look back at financials, and you will have to use up everything that you try to put in somebody else's name or try to spend in a certain way. You will have to use that money that you think you're saving for retirement to pay for care. So you need an elder care attorney specifically to help with that right away, and to help guide you through the Social Security disability paperwork, which can be completely overwhelming and daunting to a lot of people who are first applying. A lot of people get turned down the first or second time they apply, and it ends up taking them a year or two to ever see any income from that. And so an elder care attorney can help speed that process up and make it a lot easier. And the third thing is really going to be such a fun way to help other caregivers out there, and we're going to do make-a-memory trips. We're going to offer last vacations basically for families of somebody who is still able to travel, so it would have to be somebody in the earlier stages of the disease. Maybe they want to take another trip to the beach, or go skiing again, or visit some grandkids across the country, and they just don't have the finances available anymore because that person has lost their job. So what we want to do is we want to help them do a make-a-memory trip one more time with their family, and have those memories to think about as they grow older.
That is awesome.
Thank you. We're really excited. We've been able to raise quite a bit of money so far, and we're looking to start our make-a-memory trips hopefully this fall. So we're really excited about that. And then Missing Jim, Missing Jim. Wow. I started that almost 3 years ago, actually, with the encouragement of some good friends of mine who saw what I was going through and heard my stories, and they said, you need to share this. And, Jim and I went up to DC and we did advocacy, and I met other people from around the country, and I realized I wasn't alone, but how could I possibly know that unless I was there speaking to them? So I wanted to let other people know they aren't alone, and I wanted to share our story to educate people so that they understand that dementia is so much more than somebody forgetting their keys or forgetting a name. It really just encompasses so much more, and it overtakes a whole family and their friends, and it needs to be understood by people who have never gone through it.
Yeah, and I love if you folks have never been to missingjim.com, Karen writes in the most authentic, raw style. It's really sometimes beautiful and sometimes heartbreaking, but that's kind of the journey. So I encourage you to go check her out there. And I wanted to let everybody know if you are a big fan of missingjim.com, or if you've loved listening to this live chat, we are so excited to welcome Karen Garner into our family of experts here at Home Instead. She is going to be contributing some blog pieces as well as answering your questions online at helpforalzheimersfamilies.com. So stay tuned for more information on that. We're so excited to have you, Karen.
Thank you, and I am so excited as well. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, this has been a really great chat. We are getting close to the end of the hour here. But before we go, I want you all to make a note for next month. We will be discussing caregiving challenges, and Molly Carpenter is going to be our guest expert. So we're going to be chatting just like we are today. It's going to be February 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Watch your email. Watch helpforalzheimersfamilies.com for registration information. And as always, you can ask your questions live, or you can email them in to livechat@homeinstead.com. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. That was the quickest hour ever.
Well, I thank you so much. I'm honored to be able to answer some of these questions. I hope that I was able to help just a little bit, because this is a long journey, and we're all in it together, and we need to be here to support each other. So thank you so much, Kat, and to Home Instead for having me and for letting me share my experiences to help others.
Well, thank you. And thank all of you for joining us. We will see you online, and we will see you February 26th at our next chat. Have a great rest of your week, and see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.